Welcome to another episode of DMP Postscript, and today we're on location, so it's a little bit different, and we have with us not only a DMP student, but also one of the bartenders here at El Tres. So welcome.
Hi, how's it going, Steve?
Fabulous. Okay, so today what we really want to do, because, well, tell me a little bit about El Tres first.
Yeah, so it opened in 2016. There was 3 owners. They owned other restaurants in the area. They owned Bite down at the waterfront, right, and they owned George on the other side of town, the Italian restaurant. And they wanted to do something different. So there was a hole in the market for a good Mexican restaurant with actual traditional Mexican food and tequila. So they decided that they were going to do that. So they went to San Diego. The chef, Alan Rebello, he did apprenticeship with a famous Mexican chef in San Diego for a few days, and he learned how to make like tortillas and traditional Mexican food. So he did a lot of research for like a year, and he did that apprenticeship, and then this is what came of it. So yeah, Thunder has its own Mexican restaurant for 5 years almost.
So today we're not going to concentrate on the food portion, even though I've had the food here and it's fabulous. But what we're going to talk about, because you are one of the bartenders here, is we're going to talk about tequila.
Yeah.
And for me, tequila is one of those misunderstood alcohols, right? Because if you're like me, somewhere down the line in our past life, we had some bad episode with tequila, and it was one of those things you just had shots of. Yeah. But tequila is way more complicated than that.
Yeah, for
so
sure.
Give me a little bit of background of your perspective on it.
So tequila is, the making of tequila is an art form the same way Scotch is. Tequila and Scotch are, I almost call them like siblings, just because there's lots of similarities, lots of the regional aspects of Scotch like transfer over to tequila.
Right.
So with Scotch, you have different regions. For example, an Isla Scotch is very smoky, and that is translated to a Mezcal from Oaxaca in Mexico. So there's lots of similarities and there's lots of complexities. A good tequila, you don't need ice. It just tastes like candy, caramel notes, vanilla notes. Right. It's a very interesting experience that a lot of people write off.
So just like Scotch has to come from Scotland,
yes,
tequila does have to come from Mexico?
It has to come from Mexico. Okay. And there's lots of regulations in Mexico. I'm not familiar with all of them, but even the quality of the agave plants is under scrutiny, and where the agave is grown. So for Mezcal, for example, which is like a smokier tequila, it has to be, the agave has to be grown in Oaxaca, and the distillation process and everything has to be done in Oaxaca.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you mentioned Mezcal, is Mezcal just a type of tequila?
Yeah, so all Mezcal is tequila, but not all tequila is Mezcal.
Right.
So yeah, Mezcal is just a class of tequila.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're going to be making 3 drinks today. And so let's start off, what's the most traditional tequila mixed drink?
Most traditional, most common is probably the Margarita. Okay. Started off as essentially a peasant drink to make bad tequila taste good by adding lime and sugar. And then over the years, it was gentrified. It became a big drink in like California. Right. And then we got the famous Margarita glass. So yeah, we'll start by making a Margarita. You take a shaker tin. First, let's rim the glass actually. So we'll take a glass. You should chill your glasses all the time for cocktails if you can. So you rim it.
And with it rimmed with salt?
It's just with salt. So you rim it with the lime and then salt, and then you just put it there. And then we're going to take half an ounce of simple syrup in the shaker.
Simple syrup is what?
It's just 1 part sugar and 1 part hot water, and then it's stirred to put them together.
And is that just, it's easier to mix rather than just putting like sugar?
Yeah, essentially. You get a more consistent, easy mix. Okay. And then you're going to take 3/4 of an ounce of lime juice, 3/4 of an ounce of Cointreau tequila in the shaker. Oh, that was close. And then 1.5 ounces of Espolòn Reposado tequila. We use Espolòn here. It is a great, not too expensive mixing tequila. Okay. So usually this is my go-to for any mixed tequila drinks. There's a couple other great bottles too, but this is kind of like the standard right now.
So that's more or less your house tequila that you would...
Yeah, this is like just the standard tequila that we use here. Right. And then Cointreau is like triple sec, but it's just a little bit better. You get a little bit more complex orange notes.
Right.
Yeah, so then you're going to take all the components. You're going to put ice in the shaker tin. You're going to take the large part of the shaker. You're going to hit it. And then you're going to shake for 12 seconds. Then you open up. I don't use a strainer for margarita. I like some bits of ice in the margarita. It just gives a little bit more texture. Okay. And the margarita isn't the most refined drink anyway. So then ice. And always use fresh ice. Don't use the ice from the shaker. It's better for the drink, better for you. Okay. And then there's the margarita.
All right, let's see.
How's that?
Very tasty.
Nice.
And the tequila is very distinct. It does come through on it.
Yeah.
Now, if having the salt, is that something that is meant to enhance the flavor of the tequila?
So essentially salt opens up your taste buds. Okay. So salt on a rim or even in the drink is just supposed to enhance everything. So it just kind of opens up your taste buds and elevates all the flavors in a cocktail.
Right.
And you can get into like different rims. Like we have a pink peppercorn salt rim here. And you get into some different textures, some different flavors.
Right.
Yeah.
Very nice. Very, very nice.
Nice.
Okay. I noticed that when we look at all the tequila, because you have an amazing array of various tequilas here, they go from completely clear to quite dark. What's that process? And is lighter cheaper, or is there a balance between it?
So it goes from clear, so Blanco tequila is usually clear. Blanco tequila is bottled straight from distillation, so there's no age statement on it. And then it goes Reposado tequila, which I believe, I always forget the numbers. I always get numbers jumbled in my head.
Right.
Is 2 months to 12 months. And then anywhere from 1 year to 3 years is Añejo. So it goes Blanco, Reposado, and Añejo tequila. So usually there's a price increase. Okay. And Añejo usually is aged in, a lot of times, it's like Scotch where it's aged in different kinds of barrels. So toasted barrels, bourbon barrels.
Right.
We have an example of an Añejo here. So in one of our cocktails, it is Añejo aged specifically in a bourbon barrel.
Right.
So you do get some interesting bourbon notes because lots of distilleries use bourbon barrels because when making bourbon in the States, it's a law where you can't reuse a bourbon barrel.
Okay.
So they're super cheap. So Scotch distilleries, tequila distilleries experiment with them because all the bourbon guys can't reuse their barrels, so they just sell them for cheap.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, so what is the, we're going to move on to our second drink now. So what are we going to do with this one?
So for this one, I grabbed a shaker tin, but that was the trick. For this one, we're going to make a Mezcal old fashioned. So we're going to need a mixing glass.
Okay. Now, I love old fashions, but typically old fashions are with bourbon, right?
Yes.
So is it kind of in the same direction, just with the substitution?
Same direction. I find them a little bit sweeter.
Okay.
Not in like a too sweet kind of way, but just a little bit different in sweetness. So the Mezcal still gives it that smokiness of an old fashioned, maybe even a little bit more smoky than bourbon, I would say. And then it's 1 part Mezcal and 1 part tequila. Okay. So you do get.
I love this drink, but I'm going to put it aside because I want to be able to function through this. So.
Yeah, for sure. So we will take 2 orange rind pieces, and then we will take agave syrup. It's like simple syrup, but it's from the agave plant, so it's a little bit more viscous. It coats your mouth a little bit more, and it's a little bit sweeter. Okay. So we typically use a little bit less of it than we would simple syrup, and it's very viscous, so I usually just free pour it. So when I'm making an old fashioned, I will just kind of lightly coat the orange peel until I'm satisfied. So you lightly coat the bottom of the mixing glass.
Now that's the same ingredients that tequila would come from, but there's no alcohol in that, right?
Yeah, essentially it's just they squeeze the agave plant to get the syrups out of it.
Okay.
And that, so normally for tequila they would just take the agave plant.
Okay.
Yeah. So then we're going to take the orange rind. We're going to lightly muddle it. When you're muddling a cocktail, you don't want to just hammer it and break up the torch. You just want to lightly squeeze the oils. That's kind of a misconception. You see like bartending videos where they're just going at the cocktail, but you just kind of want to squeeze it, wake it up a little bit.
So when you hear about people having a worm in their tequila bottle, is that more of an urban thing, or is there any reason behind it?
So that's an actual thing that is in Mexico. I haven't experienced a bottle with the worm in it myself. I know it's mostly for Mezcal.
Right.
I know it's a traditional thing. I'm not sure why they do it, actually, because we can't get bottles with the worm in it at the LCBO. It's probably,
you can't, eh?
No, you can't.
Oh, you can't. Okay, so.
If I ever go to Mexico and I get a bottle with a worm in it and I smuggle it across the border, you'll be the first person I call.
Excellent.
So then, Angostura bitters, industry standard,
Right.
made in Trinidad and Tobago.
Yeah.
Cinnamon. So just a good couple dashes in there. And then we're going to move on to our Mezcal. So this is an example of a great cocktail Mezcal.
Okay.
It's the Mezcal Verde Memento. Super smoky. It's not the best to drink straight, but over ice in a cocktail, I really like it.
Okay. All of the tequilas that you have here, are they available in the LCBO, or do you get special orders that you bring in specifically for the bar?
A lot of the top shelf ones we have to special order because the LCBO doesn't just carry them.
Okay.
But most of the cocktail ones are in the LCBO.
Okay.
So 1 ounce of Mezcal, 1 ounce tequila. And then we're going to take a chilled rocks glass. We're going to get our giant ice cube ready.
Excellent. You like a nice big ice cube so it doesn't melt too much, right? And
Yeah,
dilute,
for
is that
sure.
really the idea?
Yeah, it melts slower,
Right.
Because more surface area, and
Yeah.
it's just better, and it looks better,
Right.
way better. So then when you're mixing a cocktail, you want to go against the edge of the glass. You should try and make as little sound as possible, less aggressive. Nice and fast with a bar spoon, mixing glass. You're going to want to stir for about 15 seconds. I usually do. You kind of just feel it out eventually.
Do you have a favorite tequila that you like your go-to?
So we used to have this Mezcal. We don't have it anymore. It was called Peloton, and it was just the smokiest booze ever.
Oh, okay.
It was crazy. It was super intense. It was like a tire fire in your mouth.
Right.
But I really like smoke.
See, my scotches, I like the smoky scotches, so.
Yeah. So you would probably love it.
Right.
We can't. They still make it, so I'm hopeful one day we'll get another bottle, but we can't get it right now because of the industry supply shortages.
Right.
So then you take an orange rind, and you're just going to want to cut it so it's all even, just like this. Then you're going to want to squeeze it like this, do a little twist, squeeze out the oils over the glass. And then you're going to just simply finish with a bit of cinnamon for the nose. And then that's
Excellent.
for you.
Yeah, it's got that nice little smokiness to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's got that distinct old-fashioned overall flavor, but it's got that little tequila notes in it that gives it nice.
Yeah, it adds a little bit of sweetness. The agave gives it like a different mouthfeel. It's not a thicker liquid, but it is definitely just a more complex mouthfeel, I would say, than a traditional old-fashioned.
Yeah. Very nice.
Yeah.
Should be careful. I can go through this too very quickly. So
It's a dangerous game.
Yeah, it's excellent. Very very nicely done. Okay, so you also have a kind of a house specialty drink that you do?
For sure.
Which is, tell me about that one.
So this was the brainchild, I suppose, of 2 bartenders that work here, Lucas and Sterling.
Right.
Great bartenders. So it's called the Sundown. It is, so it's agave syrup.
Okay.
It's technically 0.5 ounces of agave syrup, but agave sticks in a jigger, so I usually just eyeball it myself. And then it is 0.5 lime juice, 1 ounce of orange juice, and then it is 1.5 ounces of black barrel infused añejo.
Okay. So that's a richer
Richer
flavored tequila?
Yeah, it's a richer flavor. This bottle of añejo is great because it is a cheap añejo, so it's great for cocktails, and it's bourbon aged, so you get interesting smoky notes out of tequila that's not a mezcal. So then we're going to take a chilled rocks glass, going going to take an ice cube.
So how long have you been bartending?
I've been bartending for about 3 years now, I think.
Okay.
3 years.
And did you have any real knowledge about tequila before you started here, or was that something that you picked up as?
It's just kind of pick up along
Yeah.
the way, yeah. Shake it. And then you're going to double strain into the rocks glass. You're going to add your ice cube in. And then you're going to do a float of Malbec wine right on top. You get that beautiful effect right there.
Cool. It's very nice looking,
Yeah.
all with the mix of colors.
It's a good looking drink. How's that?
Yeah, it's nice. A little bit sweeter, a little bit.
It's a
you
good
get that
refreshing
orange,
drink.
yeah, absolutely. It's more of a
I always tell people it's a good first or last drink, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but again, the tequila still does
Yeah,
come through and
creeps
sit with
through.
it, so it's quite a nice
Yeah.
nice piece. So I know I've touched on these, but here's the 3 that we went through today. So really so if somebody's coming and their history of tequila is really shots,
Yeah.
right? Is there a recommendation that you kind of go through to give them an idea of how they should start to appreciate the real?
Yeah, this bar is great because we do have great tequila at every price. So, for example, we have this Cazadores Añejo is not an expensive bottle.
Right.
For an ounce, I don't know off the top of my head, but it's really not that expensive.
Okay.
It's pretty good. You could sip on it, you could shoot it if you really wanted to.
Right.
It's a great introduction to fine tequila, I would say. And then we do have George Clooney's tequila. It's Casamigos, Reposado, and Añejo and Blanco.
Okay. So he's ownership with.
He owns it with his buddy. They sold that company for more money than every movie George Clooney's ever done combined. It's an obscene amount of money is what they sold it for recently.
You know what? That reminds me of I see you got the Cabo Wabo, which is Sammy Hagar.
Yes.
Started because he's always been a huge tequila fan, and I remember he sold Cabo Wabo for $85 million to Seagrams.
Crazy. Yeah.
And it's like he's probably made more money on tequila than he ever did touring.
Oh yeah, it's nuts. Well, every celebrity has tequila now. We have The Rock's tequila.
Okay.
Nick Jonas from the Jonas Brothers has a
Really?
new tequila. Yeah, it's just crazy. Everybody raised an eyebrow when George Clooney made that much money, and
Yeah,
they just jumped in. Yeah.
Well, at least they're investing their money in booze from another direction instead of just going into themselves, right? So.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. But yeah, we have tequilas from all price points here. It's a great bar for anybody that's looking to get into tequila, tequila cocktails, or Mexican food. Yeah.
Cool. Well, I must say those were all excellent drinks to try. If anybody is interested in coming down, it's El Tres, which is on Red River Road. I'd like to thank yourself and who's the owner?
The owner's Bianca Garofalo now in Rebello.
Okay. So I'd like to thank them for letting us into their location and to be able to do a little bit of tasting with it. And I have to say, it's such an impressive bar. I think it's a local
local
person
carpenter,
who made this.
Bradley Allen. He did
Right.
this. He designed the whole thing using reclaimed wood from his
Right.
camp, and he also made a big center table that we have in the restaurant too.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It truly is. So, anyways, thank you very much. And I have to laugh when I was just doing a little preparation for this last night, and when I started to type your name down, and it actually is part of bartender.
Oh yeah, it's true. Yeah.
So it's Jack Barton, and if you just extended, so you are part of a bartender
Yes,
breed. So
exactly.
I would have thought more people would have said that about you.
Come
but-
from a long line. I'm sure.
Anyways, thank you very much, and really happy that you're able to join us today. And
Thank you.
This was a lot of fun. So take care.
Sure.